Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Today's video is going to be about how to really ground our energy when we are feeling overwhelmed with maybe you're going through a Kundalini awakening and you're just feeling like you have so much energy in your head, so much head pressure, and that you're just maybe feel like you're going crazy. We could also be feeling just like these just electrified, like going from 110 watts to 220 watts. And this can bring about all sorts of energetic symptoms. Feel like lots of twitching, shaking. I know sometimes my eyes will just like vibrate. That means we have a lot of pressure behind the third eye. We may have a lot of pulsations, especially in the head area, and we just can't calm down. For me, what was the most challenging symptom was I just couldn't relax. I would just go outside and pace barefoot in the grass, and no matter what I did, no matter what breathing exercises I would try, sometimes no matter what heavy foods I would eat, I could not relax. And this was a really difficult time. And the reason it was the more difficult for me than it had to be is because I hadn't yet developed the space of the witness. I hadn't yet connected to my innate spaciousness. I hadn't connected to the space in which all of these crazy energetic symptoms and all of this overwhelming feelings of energy, I hadn't connected to the space that it's all happening in. And we are that space. That is us. The energetic symptoms and the manifestations of a Kundalini awakening when it first happens can sometimes be difficult for the body and the mind. And especially if we weren't a very spiritual person to begin with, if we didn't have a connection to God or to something higher, and we took our minds to be the highest form of evolution, then becoming ungrounded is going to be a very easy thing to do. Because the mind doesn't want to submit to something greater than itself. The mind wants to remain in control. So the mind is going to instinctually fight this energy. And that is what caused so much of the trauma for me when I was initially going through my Kundalini awakening and when I was super ungrounded, is I could not get my mind to relax. I couldn't get my mind to trust. First of all, I didn't know I was going through a Kundalini awakening. I didn't know what one was. And I thought I had all kinds of neurological disorders and craziness, right? Going to all kinds of doctors and neurologists and psychologists, psychiatrists. I've told the story a few times, but I went to the ends of the earth to try to find out what was happening in a materialist, empirical way, and nothing would show up wrong with me. No blood test could show anything. I just thought I was literally losing my mind. I was like, this must be how I'm gonna die. And it's nice I can laugh about it now, but back then it was truly terrifying and horrifying for me and everybody around me. And I hope through watching this video that you won't have to go through some of the trauma and the difficulty that I experienced. The number one thing I would say about being ungrounded is that if we take ourselves to be the mind and the body, then it's going to be a very challenging process. But if we can find a way to cultivate the knowing that we are something greater, that we are this infinite, expansive presence, that we are an immortal spiritual being that is just incarnate in form for a temporary experience, for a temporary human experience, then we can really start to view our symptoms with more of a witness perspective, more of the perspective of detachment rather than being really in them. And when we start cultivating this space of awareness, when we start knowing ourselves to be more than the body, more than the mind, when we realize on a deep level that of the body comes out of consciousness, and that consciousness is all there is, and consciousness has chosen to incarnate into form. Then we cultivate this detachment, and when we cultivate this space and this detachment, we can really start working through our trauma and our pain and our darkness. Because without this detachment, without this spaciousness to rest in, and this spaciousness, when you just really, the way to get there the quickest is just to lay down, close your eyes, and just let go completely. Don't grab onto any thoughts, just relax your awareness in a literal way and allow all the energies to move, allow the darkness to move, allow everything to come up, all that negativity and fear and all that ungrounded energy, just let it go. Stop trying to, resist and contract and control it, just let it all go. And as we do this, what we'll notice is we'll start falling into a different place. Like almost literally, we fall out of the thinking mind and we sink into and we open into this spaciousness. And then we start realizing, oh, there's an energetic subtle body here. And when we start feeling into that, we start really opening so that the trauma and the pain can move through us and release. And if we don't have this space, if we haven't cultivated the ability to find this peace, then it's going to be really hard to let go, and the Kundalini is going to have to take us down a rocky road like it did me. And you will surrender eventually, and you will find this place, but it doesn't have to take as long as it did me, and it doesn't have to get as dark, and you don't have to go as low as I did. I mean, I was at my breaking point, and I finally got the insight that everything is just energy. There's light and dark energy, and if you're feeling crazy symptoms, it's just because you have an imbalance. And to come back to balance, you just have to release what you have too much of. And I had too much dark energy because my whole life I would cling to the light. And I wouldn't want to feel my fear, my anger, my hatred, my darker emotions. I would say no, I would deny them, and I would suppress and repress them. And it got to a point in me where I was so imbalanced that I was just so filled with it. And the Kundalini will awaken, and it's going to shine a very bright light on this imbalance. So if you have a small imbalance, it's going to become a huge imbalance. And if you're like me, if you have already a big imbalance, then it's going to become a full-on healing crisis. And that's where, when we have that huge imbalance and the Kundalini comes in, that's where all these crazy symptoms can come up. That's where the psychosis can come from, the uncontrollable thoughts. There's just so much that the Kundalini is trying to purify you from, or just trying to purify your being. And it is actually a gift, even though it can feel like a curse when we're in this stage. It's truly a divine gift. And the movement is to cultivate this spaciousness, this perspective of the witness, this detached a place of observing the symptoms, the energetic movement, the crazy thoughts, the fear, the sheer terror that will come up. And when we cultivate this space, what we can find is we can find the courage and the trust to really open to the experience and to stop resisting, because whatever you resist persists. So the number one thing in getting grounded is to cultivate this space of awareness so that this energy can flow, because that's all that energy really wants to do, is flow. And if it's stuck somewhere, if it's like putting pressure on you and you're just feeling overwhelmed, what it's trying to do is it's trying to expand your container. That was something I heard from my mentor, Craig Holiday, and it just was so beautiful, because I dealt with lots of pressure on the energetic pressure on this path, and every time it's come up, I realized it's just trying to expand my container. And expanding your container is just another way of saying connecting to this spaciousness, this infinite spaciousness, and to literally let go and fall into it. And once we're in that place, then we can really start feeling into our lower chakras and getting to the root of the trauma. And it starts with the root chakra. And it's something I'm just now becoming much more aware of how I've had real safety issues my whole life of not feeling safe in this world. And it doesn't have to come from parental issues or society. This doesn't have to be a conditioning thing. This could literally be a generational thing. You know, there's been so much violence and trauma in human history that it could just be passed down to you in that way. And that if you're going through a Kundalini awakening, you're being called to heal all of these pains and traumas. And that's where the grounding is going to come from having a healthy perspective of safety. And to feel safe, it starts with really opening and trusting this energy and surrendering to it deeply. And when we can open to this energy and when we can surrender to it, we can really start to love ourselves and love what's coming up to be healed. The Kundalini is going to bring you so much that needs to be healed. And the reason you're feeling ungrounded is because we are resisting this movement, and there's just too much of this energy and too much of the negativity, and we don't know how to handle it. It's because we're trying to figure it out with our mind, and we're trying to think through it, and we're trying to control it in some way and make it stop, and we just want it to end, right? But this only increases the intensity of it, and it is only going to force us to come to our knees even more. And if you need to go this route like I did, that's okay. You will get to a point where you're ready to surrender. Trust me, it will happen. But if you can, just open to this energy, surrender to it, and love what it's bringing you. Love what is arising, even if it's overwhelming and it's painful and it's terror-filled, or if it's just crazy, intense rage. Whatever it is, if you can love what's coming up, if you can really connect to your spaciousness and love what the Kundalini is bringing you, you're going to start feeling so much more grounded, and you probably will still have a lot of energetic symptoms going on, but because you're in a state of surrender and complete allowing, and you're no longer resisting the symptoms and the energy, you're not going to be as ungrounded. Your mind's going to start to calm down over time. And the worst of the energetic symptoms, you'll notice, will start to pass, because the worst of the symptoms happen when we are fighting and we're in resistance and we're struggling and we don't want to let go. And this is the mind, of the unconsciousness of the mind. It wants to stay in control, and it doesn't want to submit to something greater. But if we can find that humility to open and to surrender to something greater, to see that the Kundalini is a divine mother, that the Kundalini, that she is healing you. And if we can find the courage to allow the Kundalini to live through us as us, then we can start feeling a lot more centered and a lot more grounded. The road might get a lot easier or a little easier, but it will get easier if we can learn to just open, connect to the spaciousness, let go, surrender, be detached from the movements, watch and observe, and most importantly, love and have compassion for what's coming up. We can do those things, then we're going to start feeling a lot more grounded, and this process is going to get a lot easier. I'll end this video with some very basic practical tips, just in case you're not aware yet. Barefoot in grass, or any outside, a beach is the best in my opinion. Walking barefoot on a beach, who doesn't love that? Walk barefoot, eat heavy foods, even if you have to eat something more on the unhealthy side. At this point, just eat heavy foods. Grounding yin yoga. Hopefully I remember to post a link to my favorite grounding yin yoga. Really beautiful practice. Just go look up grounding yin yoga poses, and you'll find some really good ones there. Spend time in those. Laying in your bed, just letting go, letting the energy move. That's a big one that's going to help. And just kind of getting out of your own way with the thoughts. Just if you're having crazy thoughts, negative thoughts, that's okay. You don't have to contract and give interest to every thought. That's not to say to ignore them and suppress them. No, let the thoughts come up. You don't have to believe them. And just don't touch them, just let them go through. And they're just like clouds moving through a blue sky. You just look at them, that's fine, there they go, and they're gone. And they're very fleeting. And it's our interest and our contraction on thoughts that actually refuels them and keeps them very intense and keeps them loud. If you'll just let the thoughts travel by without grabbing onto them, you'll notice your mind's momentum will slow down quite a bit too, and that is very helpful for helping you ground. Other than that, guys, just stay patient, stay open, trust that this is happening for your highest good, because it is. You will be willing to do this a million times over when you start getting to the other side. This is really opening you to the truth of who you really are. And it's burning away all of your conditioning, all of these fear-based programmings that have been running you your whole life. And this is hard work, and it's painful, and there's going to be suffering. The pain and suffering are two of the best catalysts for growth. And when your Kundalini awakens spontaneously, or when you have any type of energetic spiritual awakening, it can get to be very challenging at times. So just try to open to it and know that this too shall pass. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this helps you. If you need more guidance and support, I do offer Kundalini counseling and coaching, and I would be really happy to guide you through this and to see if we can bring about more peace to your process and more of an understanding of what's happening. I will see you all in the next video. Namaste.